So, it turns out that the Ghost of Sparta was indeed planned to have been killed while in early development of God of War Ragnarok. We've got that story covered, some cool info for those who haven't played the game but have PS Plus Essential, and more. So stay tuned for a big God of War Ragnarok update we're about to dive into right now. Oh, f***!
I say when we're done.
Oh, okay, thank God. You gotta be Thanks to MinnMax's interview with two members of Sony Santa Monica, we have a better understanding of the early conceptualization of the game that could have seen players experience a wildly different tale in God of War Ragnarok. I will provide MinnMax's excellent interview with narrative director Matt Sophos and story lead Richard Galbert of Sony Santa Monica linked in the description if you'd like to see the full interview conducted. If you just want the Cliff Notes version of the ways the story of God of War Ragnarok was initially sculpted, then you're in the right place. So, it came as a surprise to many players that Kratos was seemingly killed by Thor at the start of the game, and then suddenly brought back to life by that same God of Thunder mere seconds later. But actually, the game was initially drafted similarly to that event in mind. To better set this up, let's briefly touch back on the previous game and take a closer look at the very mural that had fans scratch their heads to get a better understanding of it. At the very end of God of War 2018, in which Kratos and Atreus ascended the tallest peak of all of the realms, in Jotunheim, a curious Atreus went forth to ascend the final steps of the peak, while Kratos caught a brief glimpse of a mural that seemingly depicted his own death. A death by his own son, Atreus. This mural played a key role for the entirety of Ragnarok as we came to find, a role that frightened both Kratos and Atreus as they were determined to find a path in which they could determine their own fate. During the early moments of development for the story of God of War Ragnarok, the studio at Sony Santa Monica were initially planning on having Kratos die at the beginning of the game, and by Thor himself. The death of Kratos is a fascinating thing, and a concept that has happened on numerous occasions throughout the storied franchise's history, entirely taking place within the Greek saga of games. It was but one mural that we saw at the very end of God of War 2018 that hinted at a death of the God of War that sent fans far and wide, myself included, into creating theories as to what sort of fate would befall Kratos in God of War Ragnarok. Could Kratos die? Would they kill him off, just to have him come crawling back out of hell yet again? Precisely. In MinnMax's interview with Matt and Richard, we find out firsthand what the original concept of God of War Ragnarok was going to be. The game would start off likely quite similar to how it appeared in the first game, but instead of both Kratos and Thor being spared and surviving their clash of steel in the heart of Midgard, Thor was planned to be the victor, sending Kratos to hell. That's right, Thor wouldn't recharge Kratos back to life as what happened in the final game. Instead, Kratos would awaken and find himself in hell. No word whether or not we would be able to play as Kratos though, as Matt stated that players would then assume the role of Atreus and have Atreus work to free his father Kratos of the frigid wastes of Helheim. Now, doesn't this sound familiar? Many fans, myself included, bought into the thought that potentially Kratos would die, whether from Atreus or from another being, and the game would send players to guide Atreus to attempt to rescue Kratos out of hell and bring the fight to Asgard. Interesting how that theory almost saw the light of day. Almost, as that preliminary story was scrapped very early on. The interesting thing about this initial story draft wasn't exactly how or even Kratos was dying, but rather how long it would take Atreus to rescue his father and get him out of Helheim. Narrative director Matt Sophos told MinnMax that Kratos wasn't going to stay dead permanently, but rather, quote, he would get pulled out of hell by Atreus, but now 20 years have passed. It was going to be a big time jump, end quote.
20 years.
Now, we could spend the rest of the video shooting thoughts as to how the story would be, playing Atreus over a 20-year span, hell-bent, pun intended, on breaking his father out of hell. but let's leave that up to you and your thoughts by dropping a comment in the comments below, as I'd love to hear your ideas of how the game would progress. Getting back on track, Matt further explains the reasons why this idea, the notion that Kratos would die, was ultimately scrapped, claiming that it ultimately would have felt repetitive and would undermine the whole purpose of the story they were trying to tell. The team knew from the very beginning that this was a tale to spit at the face of fate, and that we dictate our own destinies with actions that are in line with what we seek to achieve. Matt states, quote, "As we were developing the story, we knew that we wanted the story to be one about letting go and changing. Norse mythology is all about fate and prophecy, and we wanted to say that that's BS. Nothing is written that can't be unwritten, as long as you're willing to change. Make changes in your life, and then you're not bound to fate." And so, when we landed on that, when we knew that was the story we wanted to tell, we knew that Kratos couldn't die, end quote. By having Kratos die yet another death and have him come back climbing out of hell, even though it was from the assistance of his son, it would have ultimately felt disingenuous to the story they were trying to tell in the first place. And thus we were left with a story in which Kratos and Atreus wrote their own fates. Stories that still have much more writing to take place. So I want to know from all you good people out there, what are your thoughts about the early concepts of this story they were working on with God of War Ragnarok? I want to hear all about it in the comments below. Getting on with our other news story, we now have confirmation that God of War Ragnarok now has a 3-hour trial available for PS Plus premium subscribers. The catch? Only those in the US are eligible to take advantage of this trial for the game. No news as to when or if the trial will make its way over to other regions, but for the time being, only those with a US-based PlayStation account with a premium PlayStation Plus subscription will be able to take advantage of this offer. Before we wrap up, we have no new information regarding God of War Ragnarok's New Game Plus mode that is slated to come out within the next few months. With just a vague coming spring 2023, we'll just have to wait a bit longer for more information surrounding what new features will be coming to the highly anticipated mode. Make sure to stay here on this channel for more God of War Ragnarok news updates, along with other game previews and giveaways, including my giveaway of the Resident Evil 4 Remake Deluxe Edition. 2 winners will be randomly picked to win their own copy of a remake of one of the greatest games of all time. So click on the link in the description if you'd like to participate in that. Check this video here for a kick-ass build that you are surely going to want to use in God of War Ragnarok's upcoming New Game Plus mode, or simply to help you best the tough-as-nails endgame. Thank you all so much for the awesome support, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Peace!